Can you hear me better now? I'm hoping that sounds a little better. Let me see what it's using. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, because it tends to default to my VR headset, but if my microphone's not plugged in, but I use my microphone on my laptop for work things. All right, Attila, you asked a question. Let me just go back in time and see what that was. No, that's not a problem at all. Yeah, no, absolutely, Attila, go ahead. If anything, it would be a bonus. It would definitely not be a problem. Yeah, it's alright, Scott. It's the Oculus Rift S. So it's like a lower end VR. But it's good. Like, it's pretty clear. When the computer actually decides to work with it. Sometimes it decides not to, which is kind of annoying. Alright, so tonight we are going to do image uploading. That is our whole class, will be image uploading. And we're going to kind of wing it a little bit because there's no slide deck from Jess on this, though it was one of her things underneath her syllabus. But there's no slide deck related to it, and I don't have any material on it either. Though I have done it like 9 million times. But so yeah, there's no actual verbiage on it. So I am recording, so you can use it as a way to study or reference, but there will be no gradables related to it. So the last test, test 10, I did put up, and I was just going to use Jess's test deck, but it's a good thing I reviewed them, because I've learned my lesson. It's a good thing I reviewed them, because unfortunately Jess's test deck was related towards MVC, which you guys have not learned at all. So it wouldn't have made sense. I guess she had the plan to change that test deck, or just originally expected me to create the test, which is fine because I'm teaching the class. It makes sense. So it's a good thing I reviewed it. I added some questions. It's just 5 questions. That's it. They're all authentication based, which is stuff that we already covered from last week. So it should be nice and simple. It's multiple choice and multiple answer, and that's it. So no fill in the blank, no true or false, nothing else. Just multiple choice, multiple answer. So shouldn't wind up with any issues where people are having problems with, what they filled in or whatever, right? It should just be good. Yes, Steph, we're going to use the same files as last week. I don't know what a WMR HP headset is. Is it like HP's VR version? We fly by the seat of our pants. It worked for Facebook. Yep. So how long will the multiple choice exam next week be? Okay, so the test next week will be a combination of multiple choice, multiple answer, a few different things. Basically what I'm going to do is on this weekend I'm going to write 40 questions. You will be assigned 20 of those questions. And then, because it's like randomly chosen. But the 20 questions I'll be putting into individual pools so that way I can guarantee that you get one of one type. One of those questions will be like a short answer kind of thing, which will take you probably the longest, which will basically be deciphering a chunk of code that I give you and explaining what it does. So, but the majority of them will be like, here's a block of code. What's wrong with it? Choose from one of these 5 things that's likely wrong, right? There might be some fill in the blanks, but if there is, I will use regular expression with it. So that way they're what's the word I'm looking for? That way they're a little bit less strict, and they shouldn't wind up causing issues. Either way, no matter what, I have to review every one of the tests when I'm done anyway, so it's regardless. I just need to do it this way. Usually I do a practical. There's too many students. I have 120 students that are in PHP classes, plus I have another 40 sitting in my JavaScript class. It's just too many students to have all of that marked by Tuesday of next week, but Tuesday the following week. It's just too much. So, is there a time limit? Yeah, there's a time limit. There's 3 hours. There's always a time limit. Yeah. I mean, I'm very generous / lazy. So it's not going to be super, super, super difficult stuff. I wouldn't freak out. Yeah. It'll be good. Don't stress. Do study, but don't stress, right? And when I say study, study the things that we've covered, like authentication, everything that you basically started covering after your reading week. Make sure you study all those things, because those will be the things that I'll be putting on the test. I will likely not recycle questions from before, because so many of those questions had some issues. So I likely won't recycle those questions. I will create new questions, but I'll do it on the basis of just a slide deck. And then any of the classes that you have with me will be based on either just a slide deck or my notes that are already in there. So if it isn't in Blackboard, it won't be on the test. That's the idea. Final exam is only multiple choice, not like writing codes. I haven't decided yet. If you do write code, it won't be like a big thing. It would be something like, write out a connection. Show me what your connection script would look like. That kind of thing. Yeah, it's mostly debugging. Yeah, mostly debugging. I might ask you, to show me what querying the database would look like if this was the table name and these were the columns, right? So I might describe a table to you and then tell you to query certain things from it, and then you show me the query and what it looks like. That kind of thing. And basically, if those are the questions that I ask, and I ask you to use PDO, obviously I'm looking for bound parameters and stuff like that, right? Yeah, your phase 2 is basically the lab 5? No, I wouldn't say that. I think your phase 2 is much bigger than lab 5, isn't it? When I looked at it, you guys had to have, what'd you have to have? You had to have authentication, you had to have Google reCAPTCHA, all a part of your actual original phase 1 project, now integrated into the phase 1. Yeah, you had a lot of stuff to cover. Yeah. Yeah, but that one's optional. So the actual file upload is optional. I'm making it optional. I know it says it's a requirement, but I'm making it optional. If you do it, I will give you a bonus. So keep that in mind. All right, we should probably review, right? I mean, that's always helpful. Let's do some review. I don't want to lose these notes. I need to share my screen. Share that screen. There we go. Incidentally, one of my biggest hobbies is doing 3D graphics. I really enjoy doing it. I find it fun. I'm not very good at it, though. I like to... I can't do anything that's organic looking. So I couldn't, model out a cat or a dog or something like that. It would look like garbage. But what I do like to do is, basically inorganic objects and that, or abstract things. So this background that you guys have been seeing for the last 7 weeks, I made that. And it's one of my most... I'm most proud of that background. I love it. Thanks. Alright, I think I'm about ready. There we go. I wish WebEx would just remember where I've put things. Yes, actually, Scott, it is. They're all instances, and then they are immediately resized by random fields. So, there's a set between a range of how tall they can be. So it automatically randomly resizes them and creates that kind of, look. And then it's just a bit of lighting, right? So orange lighting underneath with a very, very bright spotlight in the middle. But yeah, the whole thing's randomly generated, and every time you run it, it would actually create a different background each time. That's probably the programmer in me. Yeah. I haven't written my own Python scripts for Blender yet, but I would like to. If you guys want to do 3D stuff, it's pretty fun. Blender.org, which I know this is off topic, but some of you might like this kind of thing. Blender.org, you can download Blender. It's completely free. And it's very high quality, very, very high quality software. It's not like using Inkscape or GIMP, right? It's actually much higher. A lot of the film industry uses it now, and because they're using it, they're also contributing back to the community because it's open source. So this thing has so many cool tools already inside of it that it's robust and it's awesome. And it's not that hard to learn either. It's actually pretty simple to learn. All right, let's take a look at what we were doing last week. So we'll go to Blackboard. And we'll go to weekly learning in week 10. And if I'm correct, I didn't wind up giving a... Yeah, the lecture content is the same lecture notes from week 10, right? A lot of you have already pointed that out to me. And said, hey, Sean, it's week 10 still. And I'm like, yeah, I know, because we're continuing on from week 10, right? Because the authentication took 2 full weeks to do, right? So we had covered Google Caption the week prior. The following week, or sorry, that same week, we had done our registrations of our user. And then once we were done all of that, we got into not notifications, not normalization, logging in our users. And that's where we started taking a look at password verify, which was the cousin to password hash, right? So password hash takes your arguments that you provided, a raw password, plus the algorithm that you want to use to be able to encrypt, which by default is bcrypt. It takes that information, it hashes your password, and then sticks it in the database, or sticks it wherever you want to stick it, right? Because it just actually returns it back as a hash password, and then you just put it in the database. So in order to validate against that hash password, you have to use the cousin method, password verify. And password verify, again, takes a raw password. It takes the hash password that you stored, and then it compares those two to be able to tell, you know, how the password was hashed and whether or not it verifies, like whether or not your password that you submitted, the raw text password, matches the hash password. So very simple, but logging in requires basically 3 steps. 1, you got to go get the user from wherever you stored them. Once you have that user information and you've pulled it down, then you need to compare that password with their raw password that they submitted. And then once that's done, then you need to store a session variable to be able to validate the fact that they have been authenticated already. Then you can create gated content, right? And we talked a little bit about gated content. Gated content just means that it's restricted by authentication, right? You can't access this content unless you're an authenticated user. So that's gated content. So we were able to provide a way to kind of force gated content by just basically checking the session ID to see if they're logged in. If they weren't logged in, then we just rejected them. Super simple, very easy, not too hard, not too difficult, right? Any questions about any of the authentication stuff that we covered over the last 2 weeks? No? Alrighty. One more thing about 3D. So, are any of you in the web design program? Like the IMWD, whatever it's called? I can't remember the acronym. Is this what we would use for real websites? Unfortunately, yes. So for many websites, yes, you would wind up using this if you were using PHP. I shouldn't say unfortunately. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not like it's not robust enough. It is definitely robust enough for what you would do. Add that to bound parameters and prepared statements and sanitization, validation, and normalization, and you'll be secure. Like, it's very unlikely that you would get hacked. The application would be very unlikely to get hacked. So yes, no, it's 100% usable for a real world website for a client, even like something that you would build for a small business or something like that. If you're going larger scale, the problem then climbs into whether or not your authentication system can support larger scale, right? How do we deal with a larger scale of people accessing our site? And that's when you might want to look into something more like some of the authentication services that are already available, like third-party authentication through Google or Facebook or Twitter, which they called social media authentication. Or there's there's Firebase authentication, which is a service that you can use to be able to create authentication. AWS has built-in authentication user management as well, where your user actually registers with AWS and they become an authenticated user to your application. It's all obscured from them, but all the authentication processing is handled by AWS. I was wondering if you could spoof a session ID or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's why there's a really good website for stuff like this. So it's called owasp.org, I think. Yeah, these guys here. Where's your documentation? I can never, ever find their documentation. Let like XSS. Yeah, cross-site scripting software attacks. So OWASP is really cool because OWASP will actually talk to you about, you know, the different things of what these hacks are, how they're done, how you can perform them on yourself so that you can actually test whether or not your application is cross-site scripted vulnerable, and then how to basically protect yourself as well. So you can go through the processes that it talks about in order to prevent cross-site scripting from happening. It also has things on SQL injection and tons of different things. I've always meant to like go through and actually read it a lot and look at all of the attacks that are available out there and get some better understanding, because I would say that security, even though I kind of just do it naturally, is probably still one of my weak points, because there are some really obscure hacks out there that I may have vulnerable apps to. I don't know, but I don't think I do, but it is possible. So OWASP, that's a great site to read. I would definitely recommend reading that. It will help you with your security. Yeah, no worries. Okie dokie. So tonight, what are we going to do? Well, tonight we are going to do file uploading. And we're going to kind of wing it a little bit because I don't actually have notes on this. Like I said, I just never had notes for it because I've never taught it really. Before this class, I didn't have access to the AWS server. I didn't know how anybody got access. So I used to use Heroku, and unfortunately, Heroku deep freezes your application. And what that basically means is it takes a snapshot of the current state of your application, and then periodically, once every couple of hours or whatever, or if it shuts down, when it reboots, it re-implements the frozen image of that application. What that means is that if somebody goes to upload a file to your application, that's not considered the frozen image. So it gets dumped. So while the image might be there momentarily, after Heroku goes through a shutdown and a reboot, that image is now gone. So you have to actually implement something like S3, which is Amazon's S3 service, or Dropbox, and then you have to create API links so that when you upload the image, the API grabs the image and pulls it into their system, and then you store it, which was so far over the head of anybody in PHP at that time that there was no way in hell I was going to go through that. So I taught, if I had time, I taught how to upload an image locally, but it was like a 3-second thing. So tonight is the first time that we're actually going to do it semi-properly, and I kind of have an idea on how we're going to do it. If you open up your lesson from last week, so lesson 10, so let's open that up with code. So we have it open in code. And I've got WAMP server already running. Sorry about that. Usually I try to run it when you guys are running yours, or like walk you through running it, but I mean, you should already know how to run it right now. If you don't know how to run it, you're going to have some serious problems on the test, and if you become a PHP developer. I am curious, how many of you plan actually continuing with PHP after the course? Like, do you plan on still working with PHP, or are you looking more forward to learning JavaScript and getting down that path, or are you more for, yeah, like ASP.NET? Yeah. TS for you, as in TypeScript? Yeah. Possibly continue with PHP. Yulia, you really like PHP? So that's the thing, like, there's so many jobs in all of those languages that you're talking about. Obviously, their values go up and down, and it really also depends on what you know. So we have a guy that works for us that's a Drupal certified programmer. So he programs in Drupal. He doesn't right now because we don't have a Drupal stack, but he can program in Drupal, and because he's a Drupal certified programmer, he's very valuable in the Drupal community. So if he applies to a Drupal job, he's worth quite a bit. Whereas somebody straight out of college that just knows basic PHP and doesn't have a framework would likely wind up getting a job at about $40,000 a year, if you're lucky, maybe a bit higher, only because the pool of PHP programmers is so vast. There's so many of them. Understanding WordPress, though, like if you were to gain experience in WordPress and understand WordPress quite well, you could actually get a job anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000, depending on your experience with WordPress. The key there, though, is not just being able to work in WordPress, but being able to do things customized in WordPress. That's where the money is being able to build your own plugins or your own child themes and stuff like that. There's a lot of money in that. Then if you go into things like Laravel or... Is Joomla PHP? I can't remember. Laravel, Magento. Is it Magento? Magento, which is like a big e-commerce platform used by large agencies. Magento is a huge thing, right? Like, being a Magento programmer, you can definitely get quite a bit of money just being able to work in Magento. But again, that's PHP, right? So that would be something that you would have to do with PHP. When I opened my lesson 10 folder in VS Code, all my files appeared green and said untracked. Yeah, that's a Git thing. Basically what it's saying is that they are not currently pushed to Git. So you have likely staged them, but you haven't committed them yet. Yeah, PHP makes up about 80% of the web, 79 or 78% right now. That's the thing, though. Like, that's 79% of the internet, because the internet is, 35, 40 years old? And a lot of PHP was done in the beginning because PHP was the easiest language to learn. Still probably is one of the easiest languages to learn. That being said, though, the most robust applications that are out there and the companies that people want to work for aren't necessarily built in PHP. Facebook is. Facebook is, like, primarily PHP, but its whole front end is React. But like Amazon is not PHP, for example. Actually, I don't know what Amazon's is for the backend. I have no idea. It's probably a mishmash of stuff. Twitter, Instagram might be still PHP, but Twitter's not PHP. Twitter used to be a Ruby app, but I think it's changed. Shopify was Ruby for the longest time, and then Shopify switched from Ruby over to JavaScript Node. They're actually hiring JavaScript Node people. So if you guys are anywhere near like Ottawa and you want to work in the Ottawa area, Shopify is in Ottawa. Yeah, you would have to commit them, maybe. Yeah, no worries. All right, let's add our files. Just so you know, Mitty, it doesn't actually affect what we're doing right now, so there's no reason to have any concern. They're fine if they're green. That just means they're unstaged. Or sorry, that they're staged, but they're not committed. Once you commit them through Git, then they'll be pushed up to Git, right? That's basically all it is. They're just not committed yet. All right, let's go ahead and figure this thing out. So right now in our register form, we have our user registration. Our user can go ahead and register and then click submit, and then we register the user and blah, 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 right? I got rid of my config file, and now I've got these wonderful errors. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I got rid of the CAPTCHA part of my application, so that's part of the problem. So yeah, so anyways, I've got all this stuff in here. I can create my user, I hit login, or I hit register, and then I can log in, right? So when I log in as my user, it takes me to this page. Not very much is going on, right? We did create a books page, I think, or something. I thought we created a books page. Did we create an associated resource? We didn't, did we, in this class? No, we didn't. We did not, yeah. I did create an associated resource in the other class, but we didn't create it in this class, which is fine. So we have our gated content. It's just your profile page. We did make it so you can delete yourself. That was Yulia's request. But what would be really cool is if we could change this image, right? If we can modify the image and actually put our own image in there. So obviously, I'm sure you can understand the segue here to uploading a file. But it's not just as simple as uploading a file. There are two different ways. Actually, there's multiple ways that we could store images. But there's two very common ways. One way is in the database directly as something called a blob. What a blob is, it's the binary construct of your image. It takes all the binary information that makes up your image and gets stored into the database. Can anybody see a problem with that? Why would storing the entire image in the database become a problem? The blue image is coming from JavaScript. If you look at our profile.php, there's this script tag here. That's pulling our user blue image. Space, like the Final Frontier, Scott? Indeed, yeah. Space. Space is really the problem because your databases are limited to the amount of space. Not to mention, not just space, querying. Querying becomes slower if the database becomes fuller. So if that table becomes more packed full of things, your actual querying process can be reduced, right? So the actual time it takes to query a record can slow down drastically just based on the size of your table, requiring you to create more indexes in order to combat that. Storing images in the database is a very bad thing. So bad, we're not even going to learn how to do it because it's bad and you just don't do it. It's something you just 100% do not do, okay? The only time I have ever permitted storing images in the database is if they were base 64 and we controlled the sizing of it to be under 10 kilobytes of data, right? So that there were only little tiny 10 kilobyte images being stored in the database. That was it. Like that's the most, sorry, not even 10 kilobytes. I think I did 1 kilobyte. It was 1 kilobyte of data and that was all that was allowed. So we're not even going to learn about that. We are going to learn the better way. The better way is that we upload the image and then we take the image and we store it on a drive in our application, right? So in some sort of folder in our application, probably something called uploads or images or whatever, just a folder in our application. And then we take information about the image and we store that into our database. And we create an association between the image that's stored in our file system and the image record in our database. So there's a few ways to do that as well. We can get extremely generic. If we're going to have multiple images in our application, not only just say a profile image, but say we also want an image to associate with a product, right? Or in Scott's case, a plate, right? So we want to associate an image with the plate. You can take a picture of your plate and that way you have this nice image for your plate. Or in Yulia's case, a profile picture of the model, right? That's a part of her application. So there are reasons why you would want an image, right? But you may want multiple different images for different things. So if that's the case, you could get very generic. You could have an images table, and then you could create a relationship between one resource and the image resource, right? So for example, we could create a relationship between the users table and the images table, saying, user image is this user with this image, right? So that's a way to do it as well. Or we can say, forget that, just add another field into the users table called avatar and store the user's image pathway inside that, right? So that only requires altering the table. Once we've altered the table and added the new field, we're fine. We don't need any extra. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I kind of like 50-50. I don't really care which way you want to do it. I'm going to give you the option. I'm going to give the next class the option too. Do you want to store it in an images table separated and then create a connecting table? Or do you want to store it in the users table as an avatar? Or do you care? Separated? Alex says users. Scott says separate. Yulia wants to see both ways. Nope, you get one or the other. Definitely separate. Oh, this is really like 50-50. Definitely, I will agree that users would be more straightforward. What we could do, we could create the images table. Okay, I've got a fair compromise. We create the images table and store the image in the images table. Then we store the ID for the image in our users table with an associated foreign key association. So that way you kind of get the best of both worlds. Which is best for your marketable skills? Storing the images in the images table and creating a relationship. 100%. All right, we'll do that. So that's going to require a couple of things. So go ahead and open up. That's my dog Murray. He's barking at somebody. Go ahead and open up whatever you're using for database creation. So I use Workbench. I know some of you need to use PHP My Admin, so make sure you use that if Workbench doesn't work for you. So right now we have our users table. It looks like this. I believe we're working in the database file folder. Yeah. The cool thing about this is we can actually alter the table quite easily. But before we do that, we need to create an images table. So there's a couple of pieces I'm going to keep here. I'm not going to get rid of all of this. I'll change this to images. There we go. So we'll start with that, and I'll give you that little snippet. So let's see, what information do we want to store about the image? Like, I mean, title, right? Makes perfect sense, or file name, or whatever we want to call it. Let's call it name, right? And name will be a varchar. And we should set a limit because you do have pathing limits on how long a path is allowed to be, and you don't want to exceed that path limit. So if we do name varchar, I think maximum number of characters should be like 20 characters tops. And it can't be null, obviously. Right? That at the very minimum would have to be, definitely would have to be required. So yeah, I definitely think name. I also think because whenever we're loading images into the web, we always need to have this attribute. I don't know if you guys know this yet. So when we create an image tag on the web, right, in HTML, it's not just the source tag we need, we also need a what tag. It's like mandatory. It actually fails W3C validation if it's missing. Provides better accessibility. Yes, the alt tag. Exactly, the alt tag. So why don't we add an alt, and we'll make that a varchar, and we'll set the maximum number of characters that can be to 255, which I believe is actually the default for varchar. I could be wrong. And we'll make it not null because it is required. It is absolutely required. So the file extension, it's funny that you say that because file extension, it depends on how you want to work this. You could do that. You could create a field called file extension as opposed to letting the name field be a part of the image. If I was to do this at work as part of my job, you bet your bottom that I would have an extension. It would be a varchar that would not exceed 10 characters, not that I can think of any extension that would, and it would definitely be not null. And I mean, why not challenge ourselves a little bit? Why don't we also grab the Mime Type, so that way we can actually say this is this Mime Type, right? So this is a image slash JPEG, or this is an image slash PNG, or this is an XML plus SVG. The Mime types can be quite hefty, so we'll just give it 30 characters. And we'll allow the Mime type to be null. Oops. Anything else you can think of that we might need for an image? One thing I'm thinking is that maybe the image name should be unique. I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter. The EXIF for the metadata? I mean, it's attached to the image anyways. So if you wanted to pull it, you could pull it at a later time. Yeah, I don't think so. That would get kind of a little bit more bloated. Yeah. Actually, what's interesting, Scott, I built a model view controller system called Sparky, and I built a file handling system. And this file handling system is not going to be like anything we're building tonight. This thing was about 400 lines of code. And one of the key features of it is that it would strip EXIF and metadata out of an image entirely, because according to OWASP, there is a hack that involves using EXIF and metadata. So this would strip that out of the image entirely. So you wouldn't have to worry about that. Okay, cool. I think I'm happy with that. You guys happy with that? I'm happy with that. Let me copy this. The EXIF and metadata? I don't know. I don't think so. That's why I stripped it out, was because it was actually a security vulnerability at the time. Yeah, the problem with the metadata is that they can actually add their own information if they're in there if they want to. They can also fudge it. So the EXIF data is supposed to actually tell you not only what camera was used and all that type of information, it's also supposed to tell you the data about the image itself. Like, this is a JPEG, this is a PNG, has alpha transparency, that type of information. But all of it can be fudged. Like, every single bit of that information can be fudged. So the only way to actually detect it properly was to strip all the EXIF data entirely, and then we used a library that would actually read the binary of the image, and then that would pull the proper MIME typing out for it. I just did it recently too, actually, at LMG to pull the proper MIME types as well. Haven't done it in PHP, so I'm not quite sure how we're going to complete this part, but we'll figure it out. Might take a bit of a Google search, but we'll find a way to do it. Alright, I'm going to execute this. Boom, I have a created table. There we go, there's images. The next thing we want to do is add to our users table. So I'm just going to right click and choose to alter the table. I don't know how you would do this in PHP MyAdmin. Hopefully you guys know how to alter a table. I'm just going to add another field into the table called image underscore ID. It's going to be an int 11, and it can be left null, because if the user doesn't want to have an avatar, we're not going to force it. They can definitely not have an avatar. So we'll leave it as int null. Then I'm going to hit apply, and this is the alter table SQL. If you just want to run that, that works as well. You hit apply, it executes it, finish. So that's cool. So we have our images table, we have our users table with the extra field in it, which we should be able to visually see. I mean, it's probably better if I just call describe users. And there we have first name, last name, email, password, and image ID. And image ID is the only field in there that can be null. Yep, you certainly can. I did paste it in the chat too, Alex, in case you missed it. Whoa, there's 19 people in here tonight. I think some of you thought it was going to be exam week. And now you're scared, you don't want to leave. I've actually had that happen in every semester I've taught over 6 years. So 18 classes, well, more than 18 classes, because most semesters I teach 2 or more. So yeah, out of all the classes, I've had that happen where the week prior to exam week, I wind up with a whole bunch of people showing up. And a lot of it usually has to do with the fact that they think that it might be the exam week, or that there's potential to be exam. Would you mind going back to the image ID part? Yes, I pasted the code. Where is it? Let me grab it. It's just this, Steph. Put that inside your SQL and run it. And that will add the image ID to your users table. Make sure you create the images table first. Well, actually, it doesn't really matter, 'cause we're not actually creating a foreign key or anything. Did you guys do foreign keys in your relational database class? Yeah? If you wanted to make it as a foreign key, you can. That's fine, but I wasn't going to bother with the constraint. Alrighty. So we've got some things to do. We've got a bunch of things to do. We're going to need a way to upload the image itself, right? So we should have a new file and call it, I don't know. See, this is the thing I don't know. Maybe we should have it as edit user, because really ideally we should be able to edit the whole user in my mind, right? So why don't we do that? We'll call it edit user.php. I think that's a good name for it. And because I'm super lazy, I'm going to go to where we actually register the user. And I'm going to copy register.php. And I'm going to paste it into edit user.php. And then we'll just modify this. Does that make sense? So copy register.php into edit user.php. So we actually have the pieces in place. In our profile, we should probably click and create an edit button. That would make sense. That goes to that. Register.php MIDI. So why don't we go to edit.php or edit user.php in our browser, and that will take us to this page here. And I hope you're okay with this, but I'm going to get rid of my JavaScript chunk in this because it's just causing me, it's making me mad. And I don't want it in there. There we go. I'm going to change the title from register to edit user, and we'll actually change user to be the retrieved user. So this is another gated piece of content, right? Just like we did with the profile, it needs to be gated as well. And this is where you're going to find out that copying and pasting really does become your best friend, because you're going to do a lot of copying and pasting. So for the gated part of it, right? So to make this a gated piece of content, if we open up the profile.php, we can literally just copy this chunk of code at the top of profile.php and replace the PHP code that is currently at the top of register.php, right? We'll deal with the form session values in a minute. So that will deal with our user not being logged in, right? And then here we can do form values equals $_session. I mean, we didn't necessarily have to remove it. We could have just left it and then did it, or whatever. And then we'll unset them as well. So now this is a gated thing here. Oh, right. So we need or null. I forgot that. Or null. There we go. And I'm logged in. If it doesn't work and it kicks you back out, then you got to log in first with a user you have registered. So obviously we want to pre-populate this form, right? We don't want it to look like this. We want to pre-populate the form with our user's details. The cool thing is, though, is we already have the user's details, right? We don't need to pre-populate the form by reaching out to the database and grabbing new information because we already have the details we need. So there's a way we can kind of do this by cheating a little bit, okay? And that's, we can actually change this from null to just $user. And if I hit refresh, notice the form is all filled out now. Is that not cheeky? It's already grabbing our user information and filling this information out. We do have a flaw here, though. See that email confirmation doesn't currently have the email information in it. We should correct that. And I mean, it's not hard. We can just do form values equals $_session. Sorry, no, we need the email confirmation. Email confirmation. There we go. Would equal $_session form values email confirmation, or this is where we need to shut down this side, $user email, like that. So if there is an email confirmation, we'll load it from the session form values. Otherwise, we'll load the user's email. Uh-oh, I didn't like that. Form values. Oh, actually, no. We should just do this as form values. That's even better. There we go. That works, because that's the same. Loaded a 1. Undefined index email. Is user email not present? Because it's loading. Maybe we should var dump the user and see what's going on. Yeah, there's an email address, all right. User email. Not seeing the reason why it says the... Oh, email confirmation is not there. It doesn't like that it's not there. It's kind of blowing up a little bit. We can do that as well, but we can wrap it in like this, which is... Oh, I see what I did wrong. Never mind. I used the or statement instead of the that. There, that's better. Alright, let me give you all that code. There you go. Yeah. I typed the or thing because I literally typed PHP, JavaScript for most of my week. It's only when I teach these classes that I'm typing PHP. So I forget sometimes that it's the double question mark and just muscle memory. So that fills out those details. The password here, arguably, I don't want to deal with that tonight just because it's a bigger scenario. Let's just get rid of the password so we don't have to deal with password reset information and stuff like that. So we'll scroll down to where the password fields are, which is 76 through to 90. And we'll get rid of the 2 password fields. So look at my screen right now, guys. These are the 2 that we're going to get rid of. And we're going to remove those altogether so that we don't have those fields. So now when I refresh, it's just first name, last name, email, and email confirmation. We should change this from registration to edit user, but we can actually be a little cheekier than that. We can edit and create like a name here. Like that. So now this says edit ASDF ASDF, which gives a little bit of personalization to what we're doing. So replace your H1 on that page with this tag. And it probably wouldn't hurt to replace the title so it's the same way. So I'm just going to grab that little PHP snippet and replace user with that snippet. So that'll affect my tab up at the top of my browser to be the same. So that's pretty awesome. We literally built an edit page in a very, very tiny period of time. In like 10 minutes flat. Alright. Yeah, pretty quickly. Are you guys ready to add our file upload field? Or are you still writing things out? I don't want to move on. So much yes. Are you being serious? You want me to push to GitHub right now? Now? What if I just copy it from here and put it into a paste bin, Steph? Or do you actually need the whole code base? Huh. Paste bin's good? Okay. Let me paste bin it. Let me put it in the bin. There we go. Create new. C. There you go. Nice little paste bin. Alright. I'm going to scroll down to the form. So we've learned about action, right? Action takes our contents of our form and sends it through as either a get set of parameters or a post body to wherever you tell it to go to. So in this scenario, it would be to insert.php, right? We're going to change this. We're going to create an update.php page, and we're going to point it to that. So let's do update.php for now. So change your form action to update.php. The method will stay as post, right? We have no validate in here. If you want to turn your client-side validation back on, just get rid of the no validate, and then it will turn it back on. Which arguably we should have on, because all these fields need to remain with values, otherwise they won't work properly. Let's add in our last attribute. Maybe you haven't seen this one before. This is the Type attribute. And we need it whenever we're uploading a file. We have to change the type of form we're using. By default, the form is, I forget what it's called now. I forget what the Type is for the normal form. It's like a default thing where it's just basically form parts. What we want is the multi-part form data, this Type. And the reason we want that Type is because it will allow us to be able to upload files. Without that Type, we can't upload files. If you refresh, it does literally nothing to the screen. There's no difference in how it appears. It's just a difference in what its functionality is capable of handling. This will allow us to be able to submit an image to wherever we want the image to go. Alright. Now we need to add our field. So we'll scroll down. And I mean, might as well go down to the bottom here, right? We'll create a new, so just above that one div, just before the button here, we're going to create a new row, I guess? Or is that already a row? That would already be a row. We'll create a row underneath, actually. So if you do div.row and hit tab, Emmet will automatically create the expression for you, which is kind of nice. It is a form group. I'll give it a label, though I don't think it matters. This will be for, we'll call it avatar. And upload your avatar. And then we need to give the input type. So the input we're going to use is type file. We need to give it a name, and it'll be the same name that I gave it there, so avatar. And we don't need an ID, that's fine. And then when you hit refresh, it should look like this. Upload your avatar. My styling is obviously janky for it, but it's the best we can do. So now if I was to upload an image, so go choose file, go to pictures, I'll use Richmond from the IT crowd, and I imagine register is our submit button. We should change that from register to update. Yeah, it's funny because I've seen that show so many times, Scott, like a ridiculous number of times. But my favorite episodes are still the dinner party, where it's Moss, Roy, and Richmond all go to Jen's house, and they meet those other three women, and it's the funniest episode literally ever. And then my second favorite episode is, oh, my brain's stopping thinking. Shoot, I forget what it's... It has Dunham in it. Oh, I can't remember. But I watched both of them the other day. They were hilarious. The D&D one. Yes, that's my second favorite, where Jen becomes basically... what's his face from Godfather. It's like the funniest thing in the world. Yeah, it is so funny. And then when she brings Roy into the office and she's like, "You're bringing everybody down." It just kills me. The whole show is so good. Yeah, just amazing. If you guys have not seen this show that Scott and I are talking about, it's called IT Crowd. It's on Netflix. Definitely watch it. It is absolutely hilarious. Hopefully you like British comedy though, because it is British. But it's really, really funny. Alright, so I'm going to choose my Richmond avatar here. And I'm going to hit update. And it's going to go nowhere, right? Which is fine. We already knew it was going to do that. We are missing an update page. Whoops, sorry about that. Let's create a new file called update.php. Ideally, it should be update user, but whatever, it doesn't matter. And now... goes to a blank page. So we need some PHP. And I'm going to blow your mind a little bit. If you var dump, which some of you are probably already in the process of doing, var dumping _post, so you can see what does this file thing look like, and you hit refresh, you're going to be sorely mistaken. Because unfortunately, the file part of your actual submission doesn't come with the post. And I mean, it's all in the name here. Multi-part. Multi-part, meaning there's multi-parts to this submission. The submission contains a post and... why do I keep typing a T at the end of that like it's dumped? Files is the other one. And this is where our file will be. See? Here's our file. We have our name of our file. We have the type of our file, which will be our Mime Type. So I guess we'll just pull the Mime Type from there. Forgot that it was there. We'll have to do some logic to grab the actual extension. That's not hard to do. We can use some logic also to grab the name. That's pretty easy stuff. The temporary name is where it is temporarily stored. So right now, this file exists in my WAMP64 temp directory. It's only there till this transaction is done, and then that file gets disappeared. So what we want to do is we want to move this file from here into a directory within our application. This would be true even on your live server. This provides any error numbers. There's like a bunch of different error codes. And this is the size of your file in bytes. You can use that to restrict how big of a file somebody uploads to your server. Cool? Alright. We need validation stuff, right? Obviously, we have all that validation to do again like we did the last time. But I am definitely not going through that whole bit. So why don't we open up insert.php, which we have here. I'm not going to copy over my caching for the Google cache. I will copy over most of the other stuff, actually. Why don't we just hit Control-A, Control-C, Control-A, Control-V, and paste insert.php into update.php for now. And then we can start cutting things out. So I'm going to get rid of my reCAPTCHA. It's up to you. If you want to keep your reCAPTCHA in there, that is fine. I'm just going to get rid of mine because otherwise I'm going to have a bunch of issues. Nope, I got rid of too much. I want to keep the error thing. I want to get rid of my config. And then this is the reCAPTCHA part for me. There, okay. So we'll leave this field in, all of these fields, but obviously we don't need the password stuff because we got rid of it. So let's get rid of the 2 password input pieces so that we're only filtering the first name, last name, email, and email confirmation. The required fields, again, we can get rid of the password information, right? So that we're only doing first name, last name, email, and email confirmation. And the cool thing is the validation that we used in order to check to see if it was blank is pretty not that specific. So the only thing we need to get rid of is this guy here. This little password chunk that's there. Otherwise, this is fairly generic. I will copy this and put it in a paste bin as well. This is obviously not the lesson for today. Validating our email. Any of the password stuff we can get rid of here. So this is all the password confirmation things. We have our error handling, which is fine. We don't need to hash a password because we're not doing any password hashing. We're going to connect and enter our information in, but obviously we want to get rid of the password. So this is going to change. This expression, this SQL is going to change. It will be an update. Let me just see if I can get rid of anything else, and then I'll just copy and give you this file. Oh, that's good. Okay, hold on. Control A, Control C, and I'll create a paste bin. There we go. All right, there's the paste bin for where we're going to start. Now the thing is once we have the image, there's no way for us to send the image back to the form if there's an error. They would have to literally re-upload the image. So once you have that loaded, just scroll all the way down to where we're doing the SQL, because the SQL will be different. So this is the one kind of nasty little thing. We have to basically check to see if there is an image first. If there is an image, we need to handle uploading the image, creating the image record, and after that is complete, then we can create the user record. Sorry, we're not creating the user record, we're editing the user record, right? So we don't want to perform our update until we know for sure that we have our image. So any of this stuff that you see here, I'm going to move all the way down. And underneath my connection here, we're going to write uploading image. Now we only really want to execute this logic if an image actually exists. So the best way to do that really is just to see if the image files are there. Like if there's anything actually in the image files. And we can do that by simply doing a count on files and checking to see if it's greater than 0. If files is greater than 0, then we know we have images to work with and we can go ahead and work with them. So our file is called avatar, right? So we can go ahead and grab our avatar. Actually, you know what? Why did I do this in such a weird way? No, I think that is correct. That might be wrong. Hold on, let me do... Let me just check and make sure I didn't goof this up. Because it's an associative array. Yep, it's working. Yeah, it's an associative array. It works. Alright. So there's certain information from here that we want. We need to extract this ext, this extension. So we'll take that out of there. We want this part as just the name and this part as just the extension so we can keep track of those two pieces of information. That way if we wanted to have like different file types, so say we wanted to offer WebP and AVIF as file formats, we could have those formats as well and then choose which format of that file name we want, right? So you can have multiple file formats for the same name. Alright, hold on. Let me do a quick Google search here. PHP extract extension. And I'm pretty sure that PHP has a super easy way to do that. Path info, yes. Yeah, you would think, but no, path info is the thing that is the awesomeness. Let me show you how path info works. Path info is so cool. So we can var dump path info, like so, give it the $_files and the name field, and that should give us a array. Oh, I forgot to exit. I totally goofed that up. That's annoying. Hold on. Edit user. There we go. Why is this so big? Go get Richmond. Update. Alright. Undefined name. I thought it was called name. Oh, no, I see what I did wrong. It's not file's name, it's file avatar name. That's why. There we go. So you see, now I can get the file name and the extension, and I don't have to do any explodings. Nice and easy. And even better, can I use list here to store all this information? So I don't know if you guys have much experience with list. List is pretty cool. So this is being returned as an array. List. How does list work? Hold on. PHP list. PHP list. Right. So list allows you to store those values as variable names, but I think I'm going to do this a bit different. I think I'm going to call expand. Path info. $_files. Avatar. Name, like so. And then now I'll be able to var dump extension and file name. I thought it was called expand. Maybe it's deprecated. Extract. It's extract, it's not expand. Extract. Have you guys used extract before? What extract does is it takes an associative array and it explodes it into variable names based on the keys. So whatever the associative keys are, they now become variables. Darn it, I keep forgetting to exit. Can I go back? Kind of go back. I still need to select this again. Yeah. Oops. JavaScript. Always in my brain. And there we go. So extract, what it does is it takes an associative array that has those keys and it blows them apart so that you can see these easily. If you're not happy with extract, I know some people don't like it because it's too obscure. It's too much magic, so to speak. It's hard to tell what it's actually doing, which tends to confuse people. If that is the case and you're not happy with that, what you can do instead is you can do path info equals, or we'll write it like a proper variable, path info equals this, right? And then you can intentionally do extension equals $path info extension, and $file name equals $path info file name. It's up to you. Either or is fine. I like extract just because it's quick and done, but whatever. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what extract is doing for you. So it's totally up to you which one you want to use. Some people don't like it because you limit readability, right? You don't see that these things are exactly happening because they're behind. They're they're under the hood, so to speak, being defined, and I think that's what throws people off. So I'm going to do it this way just because I know some of you like things to be a little bit more upfront and aren't totally into the magic of the things you can do in PHP, which arguably maybe you shouldn't be able to do some of these things in PHP. So we have our file name, we have our extension. What else did our database need? I forget now. Yeah, I can. We're not done writing it though, just so you know. There you go. What else are we missing? We have name, alt, extension, mime. So it's going to be the mime type anyways. The extension is actually called ext, but this doesn't really matter. We don't have an alt because we never actually got an alt from anybody. So we'll just put in a default for now. We should really add an alt tag to our form, but I mean, whatever. Well, we're just going to make this nice and fast. So we'll add our image upload SQL. So we'll do SQL equals. And this is an insert statement. So it'll be insert into images, right? And values. There we go. So in the first thing, we're looking at the name. I'm going to need this on the other side because I'm going to keep forgetting. Put that in my notes over here. So we need name, the alt tag, the extension, and the mime. And these are going to be name, alt, extension, and mime. And you may be like, well, why are we doing bound parameters? And the reason is because the user could just create a file that happens to have a script tag as a part of its name, right? Or happens to put cross-site or SQL injection in there. Trust nothing. All users are either... I'll leave that open. We need to do our bound parameters, but obviously we have to prepare our statement first, right? So we'll do $statement equals. Did I rename? Yeah, I did. $con. Prepare SQL. Let's get our bound parameters in there. Bind param. We'll do name first. The name is going to come from the file name, so we'll give it the file name. And we'll protect ourselves from any possible injections by at least casting it to a string. The bare minimum, we're casting it to a string. If we want to protect against cross-site scripting, we really need to do the filter var here. And change this so that it's just sanitized. So we do what is it? Filter sanitize string, like so. And we should do that to the extension as well. That will prevent any possible nasty, whatchamacallit, cross-site scripting. This will prevent SQL injection, but that will prevent cross-site scripting. And then we can $stmt bind parameters. This one's for the alt tag. For now, we'll just put in our own thing, like this is an image. Duh. So we'll leave that as a placeholder. Obviously, we want to do the extension, or sorry, bind parameter. So ext, and then we'll do $extension here, and that is also the PDO param string. And then the last one, $statement, bind param, and this is our mime type, and we can get our mime type. Oh, hold on. How do we get our mime type? I forget what it was in the thing. If we do var dump $_ files and then exit directly after, let's see what it is. Yeah, so it's type. That's what it is. It's type. So we need the type, so we should pull that out. So we'll do $type equals filter var $, $path info. Or no, I guess that comes from the files, doesn't it? Files, sorry. Avatar type. There we go. And we should also filter sanitize that. It might seem like overkill, but it does make sense. I'm not sure how this type actually gets figured. If I'm correct, it does it using the EXIF data that we were talking about before. So we kind of want to filter it just to make sure. I am a little curious what the sanitizer is going to do to this slash. I have a funny feeling it's going to replace it with an HTML character, which is fine if it does that. We'll just deal with it at the time. But at least now we can at least enter the type. And then we're ready to do the statement execute. And then we need to run a query to get the last executed statement. And I'll be damned if I can remember how to do that. PHP PDO get last insert ID. Oh, it's literally called last insert ID. Maybe it comes from statement. I don't remember though. Is there an example? Because the thing is not a good example. Ah, get the last insert ID. Oh, it comes from the DB itself. So, $image ID is going to equal $. $DB, no, it's con. Last insert ID. Alright. And we don't need to exit after that anymore. So let's grab all that data here. I'll have to create a paste bin for that one. Maybe I'll just create a paste bin for the whole page. Just because it's kind of a weird one. Yeah. Yeah, get the last insert ID. It is a very useful function. I think there's a problem with it, though. I think I remember reading a long time ago that if you have a high concurrency rate currently connecting to your database and people are constantly inserting records, that this last insert ID could wind up not being the ID that you just created. It could be another ID belonging to somebody else. Yeah. Line 92, you're getting a thing saying you can't pass a reference variable? Oh, that you need to pass a reference variable. So it doesn't like this because it wants you to pass it as a reference. That's fine. All we'll do is just do a $alt tag equals this. I forgot about that, about bind param. It doesn't take a string directly. You have to pass it a reference. Yeah. Yeah, it just means that we can't use this that way. We have to pass a variable. That's all it means. It doesn't like it that way. I don't know why it's like that. It just doesn't. Yeah, no worries. So once we have our last insert ID, now we can go ahead and write the rest of our SQL that we need to write, which is the next SQL statement. So the next SQL statement is going to be the update statement that we need. So this will be update users set. And it's kind of like everything has to get set, which is kind of annoying. I'm just going to do that. Set, brain's just completely shutting off tonight, and I don't know why. First name equal to first name. last name equal to last name, email equal to email, and image ID equal to image ID. Like so. And then obviously we need a where clause in there, where user, or sorry, ID equals, and this is where we need the user ID, which is interesting because we didn't actually pass it, but we technically have it if the session has been started, which it has. So we have the user ID. We're basically forcing them only to be able to edit their user, right? So we'll just add user ID in here, or we'll just add ID in here, and then we'll create a bound parameter for it. Actually, it doesn't really matter, does it? Forget that. We'll just spit it out right now. Might as well. We control it. We control the horizontal and the vertical. And then that gets prepped. Everything stays the same. The only thing that is different is those last two pieces that we were just talking about. 97, 94, and 97 are spelled wrong? What? Did I spell param wrong? What? You've never heard of bind parm? It's bind parm, Yulia. Parmesan. Chicken parmesan. Nice catch, though. Thank you. Yeah, it's not bind parm, it's bind param. That is very correct. So bind our ID. No, we don't need to bind the ID. What am I talking about? We're just binding the image ID. There we go. Bind the image ID. Store the image ID. However, we have an issue here. We need to fix this. Param int. There we go. But we only want to execute this bind param if there is an image ID. So we're just going to do a quick if $image ID. Actually, we should do that as is set. There we go. If image ID is set, then we can use our curly braces, or because it's just one statement, we can just set it right on the same line, like so. And that should be good. I don't see any reason to need anything else. That covers our use case and gives us all the information for me. Yeah, I don't doubt it did. Even though tab 9 was populating parm, VS Code was like, I don't know what parm is. I'm looking for params. Go bind parms on your own time. I'm going to hit refresh and see if this works. Oh, where's it going to go, actually? I just realized that our redirect is not set up properly. Our redirect needs to go back to the profile page. You have updated, we should just change this. You have updated your profile successfully. So I shouldn't need to copy that for you. Just change this to profile and change this to you updated your profile successfully. And then our error handler, I think we also need to fix. Yeah, because it goes to register, we need it to go back to profile. So the error handler needs to redirect to the profile.php. And then down at the very bottom, you need to redirect to profile.php. So everything should redirect to profile.php. Let's refresh. Oh, right. On line 71, I think I still have an exit. Yep, I do. I'm var dumping and exiting on 71 and 72, so remove those two lines. You updated your profile successfully. Cool. I'm not sure I believe it. I'm going to check in my database here and see if I have a user. Or see if I have images. Oh yeah, I've got images. That's cool. Yeah, I'm refreshing update.php. I'll copy this and create another paste bin again, just because I think even with just the minor amount of lines that were changed, I don't want to lose anybody. There. This is the completed update.php. Alright, so now our profile actually needs to change so that we can change this image out with the avatar image that we found, right? So if we open up our profile.php page, and yes, I know we haven't had a break yet, but we're probably just going to work through because we're literally almost done. This line 34 is where we're doing this weird image here, but we can actually change this out to be a PHP if condition. And we can just say $user image ID, like so. Right? And we can also write an else statement in here, PHP else. And then down here, we can end our if. Like that. So this will output if there is an image ID. If there isn't one, we'll get this. Undefined index image ID. So we should do an is set here. In other words, it will definitely cause a problem there. There. So if it's set, then we'll see it. Otherwise, this will happen. So for whatever reason, our user actually doesn't have image ID. And the reason is because we just updated it. So what we need to do actually in our update.php, we've bound our user. We're at the very bottom of our page. We actually need to take those new user details and apply it to our user in our session, or at the very minimum, add our session ID. But I think what we'll do, how are we going to do this? This is kind of complicated. So we've gone through, we've updated our user. Let's fetch the new user. Fetch our new user details. So that way we can update our things. So we just need to quickly fetch the user. So we'll need the user ID. Oh, we already have the user ID. All we need to do is just fetch them. We'll just fetch them in one line. So we'll just use user, $con, query, select star from users where ID equals $_session user ID, like that. So one line, and we'll do fetch. And because it runs off the page, you can actually do this, which is kind of neat, which you'll see a lot of people do, which automatically insinuates the chaining. And then now that we have the user, we can do $_session user equals $user. And that will update the user with the session user with the new details. So add that to your update.php page, just underneath end sanitize. So just underneath end sanitization around line 116-ish, just add this new block I just pasted in the chat channel. And that should fix it. So if I update my user again, edit user, choose my file, and update. See, now I got an empty image, and that's because now it has the image ID. Yeah, I'll paste my change in a second. Sorry, Jesse, what? Can you show the lines directly above what we can currently see again? So where? Up here with the update? Yeah, no worries. I did paste the paste bin for it. Yeah, no worries. Alright, the profile part here is this part here. I can paste it, Yulia, but we're going to be modifying it. what I want to do now is output that image based on the fact that we're going to replace whatever this image is with that image. So it's kind of a multi-step process because we need the image itself. We don't currently have the image. All we have is just this part. Yeah. I'm just going to give you the paste bin because I don't think you're going to find the spot to put it. So it's just easier if I create the paste bin for it. So this is update.php. There you go. So we want to output the image here. We're checking to see if we have the image ID. We would actually need to do a full query here in order to fetch the image. But the good news is it's a single line query anyways, so it's completely irrelevant. So we can do that all in one line, right? We can just simply do $image equals, no, we can't because we would actually need to pull it. Erg. I think the easier way to do this is just to check to see if there is an image. I'm going to change this to image, which is obviously going to blow up. So if I refresh my screen, it's going to blow up, right? Actually, it's not going to blow up at all because we don't have an image. And then at the very top of the page, we'll add in the logic for that. So let me know when you're done changing this line. That way I don't have to copy and paste one line of code. Done, done. Yulia, do you have that chunk of code in there now? Yeah, okay. Until it's done. MIDI, do you have this line of code in? Yeah, not done. Incidentally, there's no weekly folder this week. You will find the quiz under the quizzes folder, in case you're looking for it. But there's no weekly folder this week. This video, there might wind up being a weekly folder just because I have to put this video up. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it, but once I put it up, I'll put an announcement where it is located. MIDI, do you have that code in yet? No labs. You're done your labs, right? You guys did lab 10 already? Or lab 5, I mean. All your labs are done. Alright, cool. So I'm going to go up to the very top of the screen here. And we have our user session here. What I need to do is just get the image that corresponds to the user, right? So what I'll do is $image equals, we'll need our connection to, sorry, should include that first. Include once underscore connect.php, $con equals DBO. There we go. DBO. Because we control all of the values here, we don't need to worry about the user doing anything funky and doing any SQL injection, so we're fine with that. We can literally just write select star from images where ID equals $underscore session. Nope, sorry, we don't even need to do that. Just $user image ID. Just like that. And because we're running out of screen here, fetch video fetch ASOC, like so. And that should return an image, in theory. Yep, there's our image. Is the text too small for you to see, Yulia? Do you need me to increase the text size? Or am I just typing too quickly? Sorry. I probably type like, I don't know how many thousands of lines of code a week, so you get pretty quick at it after a while. You guys are going to get quick at it. You'll get super fast before too long. Get super fast at being able to write code. Get super fast at being able to troubleshoot. Yes. No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You guys did this format with Jess at one point, didn't you? Like, you guys have typed out this syntax structure before, right? Or is this new to you? Yeah, I know we've done it together a couple of times. I wasn't sure if you've done it with Jess yet. In my other class, we started with MySQL I for a few weeks, and then we moved from MySQL I to PDO. And then when we moved to PDO, we started doing that query set. Oh, okay. Yeah. Chaining's pretty cool. I mean, you guys have done chaining in other languages, though, right? Like you did it in Java. Yeah. Same idea, except for PHP doesn't use dot syntax. It uses arrow syntax, which is a lot closer to what you'll do in C# and C++, because that's arrow syntax. Actually, I don't know about C#, but C++ is arrow syntax. All right, are we good? Does everybody have everything written out, or do I need to wait a little longer? I'm going to scroll. Scream if you're not done. Okay. I'm going to come down here to where we're checking to see if the image is set, and I'm just going to write an image tag. It's going to look like a dog's breakfast. I'm guaranteeing it. But we need to put the image tag in here. We're also going to need our alt tag, right? And the values for those we'll get from PHP. So we'll echo them using that shorthand echo statement. So this is going to be weird because it actually needs to be a combination of two things. I just realized something. I forgot like a major part of this whole process, which is moving the image from the temp directory over to our uploads directory. Completely forgot to do that part. So we're going to have to go back and do that in a minute. But we'll put it in an uploads directory. We'll fake about it for now. We'll call it uploads/. This will be the name field, right? And then we'll do another one with a dot in the middle. I mean, why don't we just write it out? It doesn't make sense to do it this way. So we'll output $image name dot $image ext. That's good. Am I forgetting anything? Yeah, just the uploads part, which we'll need to create that directory. And then in this guy here, don't worry, I will paste this before everybody asks. Alt tag. Alright, so that's not going to work, just so you know. You'll get a broken picture, but you will see our alt tag. See the alt tag there? This is an image. And if I right click and inspect, I can see that it's pointing to that image, and the format looks correct, right? uploads/mvqfde.jpeg. It's running on the other line there, but you can see that it's the correct format. So all that's good. What we did forget, though, is once we've uploaded our image to our database, we need to move it from the temporary directory to a new directory. Let me know when you guys have that code in place, and we'll go do the move command. Okay. Alright, let's jump back to our update.php, and we're going to scroll down to where we were doing our image stuff, which is right in here, line 70 all the way through to 96. So we've got our insert ID, our image is in there. I don't care where we put the image, though. Like, I don't care if we move it before we get into this or if we move it after. It doesn't really matter to me. Maybe we'll move it before we get into that. That way, if it throws an error, it blows up and nothing gets written. Yeah, just not dev null. Do you know what line it is you missed there, Mitty? Yeah, I can put the profile page on Pastebin. I want to find, if I decide to come back to teach, I'm not sure if I'm going to yet. I'm still debating, just because my day job requires so much of me. But if I do come back to teach, I think I'm going to start using Code Sandbox, because it allows you to do shared coding so that people can actually view your code and copy and paste it, which doesn't affect you as you're coding, but they can copy and paste your code and work with your code and stuff like that while you're doing it. And I think that's kind of a cool idea. Yeah, it's like live share. Live share gets janky, though, because it technically allows collaborative sharing. What I've noticed, too, with live share, we used to use it at work on occasion when we did, like, big collaborations. It would, like, not update for people. So it would update for someone, then not update for somebody else, and then that person would type something, and then all of the code would regress back to where that person was, which was super annoying. Whatever they're doing for diff checking is terrible. Yeah, absolutely terrible. But Code Sandbox was pretty good. I liked it. And its whole back end is basically VS Code. So it's like using a VS Code editor. Alright. Can I move on, Mitty, or are we still completing that? Go ahead. Alright. Go to update.php. Now we're ready to add in the line that moves our file. And the good news is it's literally one line. So we do move uploaded file, like so. It takes in the name of the file first, like its location. So it's avatar, and the location is that weird temp directory. So we say it's the temp name, right? And then we have to tell it where we want it to go to. So we want to go to uploads. And we need to give the name of the file that we want to change it to. So that will be, I'm going to have to put this like this. $_files, avatar, file name, I think is how we do it. There. That's the entire line. And that will move the file up to an uploads directory. We may wind up with a glitch telling us that the uploads directory doesn't exist. If that happens, just right-click new folder, create an uploads folder. We'll see, though. So I want to go to the edit. We need to add that edit button in our profile. before we end the night. So slash edit user. There we go. Let's choose a file. Let's go get Richmond. Open, update. So it went up. I don't see anything here, and there's no errors. I bet you it's because I don't have an uploads directory. I forgot about move upload doesn't actually throw any errors. That's the only problem. Oh wait, what? File or folder called uploads already exists. Really? Oh, it created like an uploads file, not the folder. That's super weird. Let's try that again. That's really, really weird. I'm going to try creating a target. So this will be uploads slash, and it's all of this. I mean, that is what it is. And then instead of passing it that way, I'll pass it by reference. So we'll just do $target. All right. Try that again. See if it works. Just keeps creating this little uploads thing each time. The heck? Why are you only creating the uploads thing? You know what? This is what I get for reading W3 schools. PHP move uploaded file. Let's go look at the actual documentation for move uploaded file. Alright, so for move uploaded file, the string from, the string to, right? That makes perfect sense to me. This is where it's currently located. This is where I want to go to. Yep, that's the temp name. And then your uploads directory. Yep, uploads. And then the name. Uploads, and then the file name. Maybe for some reason I've got something weird here happening. Let's take a look at the target. Maybe there's something goofy with the target. Right, need to exit, Sean. Doesn't work if you don't exit. Undefined index file name. That's the problem. So files, file name. It must not be called file name. I thought it was called file name. Oh, it's just name. That's why it wasn't working. Because it is just called name. Ta-da! Alright, let's get rid of the rest of this. Let's hit refresh. Okay. Still created that stupid uploads weird thing. I don't know if it actually did create that or if it was just there and then it blocked it. Now it didn't do anything. So this might be that thing that I was talking about where the uploads directory doesn't exist, so it couldn't move it into it. And that's all based on permissions. It depends on where you are. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So now it's there. Alright, so it's these two lines that you need, folks. And make sure you have an uploads directory inside your folder structure or it won't have a place to upload. Definitely an issue there with that image though, eh? It's not like sizing properly based on the size of the browser. Like that's kind of goofy looking. In our profile page, we can actually change that a bit. We can add a class to the image called image responsive, which doesn't want to work. And then I think there's also image thumbnail, which does that. That might be better. Try that. I'll paste that for you. Then at least it fits properly. So as your screen grows, the image will grow, but then it'll reduce when you want it to reduce. We definitely need a button in here for edit, right? We don't have our edit button. So we've got all these buttons. I'm just going to create one more button called edit user.php. And now we have an edit button and a delete me button. I'll give you the edit button too. So if I click edit, it takes me to the edit page. Now I can replace it with my profile picture. So I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen. Oh, I did something super dumb. So we're not removing the original image. We're just putting a new image in the database. So every time you edit your image, we just create a new image. So obviously whatever the first one is that comes out will be the one that loads. We can fix it by just adding an order by, right? So we can just do order by ID and do descending. That should fix the issue. Or maybe it's ascending. Huh? Oh, right, because the image ID is actually defined from the other place. But that's weird, though, because we just created a new image. So that image ID should have been the one that got applied to the user session, so it should have changed. Yeah, I know, it's using the last pick. It's not using the me.gifif, whichever that is. I don't even know what a me.gifif is. Let me try seeing if I can upload an image that isn't a gifif. Let's upload my kitchen. What? Weird. Yeah, you're not kidding. It's using literally the last image ID. Yeah. What happens if I log out and log back in again? Does it change entirely? This logic is janky. Oh yeah, there's my kitchen. Yeah. It definitely uses the last image ID. I mean, good enough. Works. Yeah. Right, that makes sense. It'll change the image ID that is currently associated with your user, so that makes perfect sense, right? However, what it's not doing, though, which kind of sucks for us, is it's not removing excess images, right? So, like, for every image I've been uploading... Hold on, where's the thingy? We've been creating new images in here instead of overwriting them. Technically, we would want to find the image and overwrite it, but, I mean, it's fine. It's fine for what we're doing. It would be difficult also to create an association to these in order to know which image is associated with the avatar. You would have to go find the image, check the database first if an image is associated, and then remove that image, then add the new image is what you would want to do in that scenario for the avatars. It depends. It also depends on who you're working for, because like our company, we never delete anything, ever, at any point. We do things called soft deletes. So even if you remove something, it's only soft deleted. We keep it around forever. Our current S3 is in terabytes of size because of that. All right. That is literally all I have to show you. Yeah, that's the whole lesson. I mean, obviously, if I hadn't went on a tangent at the beginning of class, we would have been done probably about 4:15-ish, 4:30. But yeah, that's it. I'm going to see you all next Wednesday, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready for your exam. Yeah, see you next week, Alex. 3 o'clock, same time as regular class. Yeah, probably for file permissions. Yeah. You have a good week too, Yulia. Hi, Shawani. Yes. Actually, I'm just going to push everything to GitHub. git bash here. Alright, so that's sitting in the same GitHub repo that we've been using for the last 2 weeks. So if you go to week 10 and click on the GitHub, you can access that GitHub repo. Yeah, I'm just going to help Shawani first here, Chisato, and then I'll help you. We don't have to use upload file. No, you don't need to use upload file at all. I have 2 other students to help MIDI, but yes, as long as I don't run out of time, I have another class in an hour. We don't have a lab tab, Shawani. We have lab 5. Yep. And Jesse Rickman's in the queue. Alright, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Shawani, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, we can go over what you're looking at. No problem, Steph. Cheers. Oh, yeah, I'll stop recording.